welcome to this episode of Power to the People. I'm your host, Corbin Snarden, giving you the information that you need to empower your community. Today we have guests from the Interdenominational Union Choir. We have with us today Mr. Malin Thomas and Pastor Arthur Williams. Thank you all for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
So we're talking today about the unity of music and how music has bridged the gap between some things. You know, Interdenominational Union Choir obviously strikes a tone. So how did this choir get started? What are the origins?
The origins go back to July of 1959 when a group of African American men and women got together. Miss Adine Wilson decided that they wanted to have a singing program convention and got people together to come and do that. And Miss Mary Williams decided that we need to invite the different choirs from the different churches or different singers, and that was done. And when she did invite the outside groups to come, she heard from about 5 different churches. But anyway, they got together and formed the choir and came up with the name of the Interdenominational Union Choir.
Well, awesome. So 60 years in existence. So that's obviously a lot of history, a lot of richness in there. So you say it started with 5 churches, and just 5 local churches that came together and decided they wanted to have just a program.
Yes.
And what has it expanded to now?
Oh, it has expanded with the program still, but more and more people are involved, and it's a monthly event that we have. It's normally the 4th Sunday of every month. We meet at a different church of a member of the choir. And in doing so, we carry the gospel of God in song to the various churches and to different people. Because we have the community who come in and listen to us sing, and we never know when a song can be sung that will draw someone closer to the Lord. Yep. And that's our main purpose of singing in the choir.
Well, it sounds like, you know, creating a lot of unity between different churches and being able to rotate and go to different places, because I think, you know, when it comes to whatever denomination that you are, or no denomination, even if that's what you are, you know, to come in and be able to say, oh, I can go and hear this music at my church, or go to somebody else's place of worship and hear that, you know, that's kind of unique. You don't see that kind of unity promoted so regularly, that you guys do that monthly.
Monthly, yes.
So that, I think that's very unique. So when you're having these monthly meetings and things like that, so the songs, 60 years, obviously that's a lot of voices, that's a lot of people. How large have you grown to?
Oh, we've grown. Normally there are anywhere between 40 to 50 people at our singings that we have each month. In our anniversary month, we have far more than that come and help us celebrate.
Oh, awesome. How long have you been singing with the choir?
I've been singing since July of 1992.
Of 1992, so almost 30 years. So almost 30 years. So that's quite an accomplishment. Pastor Williams, so you're fairly new to the choir. How long have you been with the choir?
Actually, before I got to Paducah, there was a former member of the choir who had a commonality that we have between the Interdenominational Union Choir and St. James CME Church. And her being a former pastor and knowing me, she was my former pastor. And she said, when you get to Paducah, there's a group of people I need you to go and see. And they were the Interdenominational Union Choir. So I've been singing with the choir since I've gotten here in that August. And when moving to the actual city, I've sought them out and told them that Mariah McIntosh sent me their direction. She was one of their singers for a little while.
Oh, well, awesome. So now, talking to both of you all in this regard, do either of you have a background in music? Are you trained singers? Are you musicians? Are you just people doing it for fun?
You want it?
I do it for fun.
I do it for fun as well, but it's great to sing with a group of individuals. When I say that she told me to go seek these people out, it was because she knew that I was coming from being classically trained, coming from singing in gospel choirs, coming from having my own group. And in those veins, knowing that this group of talented, group of world-renowned, in my opinion, singers that are put together from various churches of about 13 right now, but every fourth Sunday we actually give an invitation for anyone else that wants to come and join the group, which is how I even got to be a part in that way.
Okay, so we're looking at, you know, two different age ranges here. You've been singing with the Union Choir for almost 30 years, and you're fairly new. With 2 years, maybe 2 years with the choir. Okay, so that gap, that age gap in there, and I'm not going to call it old and young. I'm just going to say that there's a gap. Do you both find the music in there? Are you doing a different range of music? You know, being young, do you expect a younger version of music? Or being older, do you expect more traditional songs, or do you balance it out?
We do more traditional.
Yes.
However, we do bring in the more upbeat, up-to-date music, because we have to supply music to everyone. But our main purpose is to keep the old gospel songs up with today's time, and let people know that, you know, we do have the calm, sedate songs and music that still brings people in and that they want to hear.
And they call me Pastor Old School, first off, a couple of members of the choir, but because there's a couple songs that remind me of my childhood, actually, of being able to hear those songs that oftentimes we've gotten so contemporary that we forget in our main services, especially as a pastor. I can say this, as we often forget to highlight those gospels, those traditional gospels, that are those ones that will get you through when in those times of need. And so these being a part of this choir, there's been some old faithful songs that have been ones that touch hearts, touch minds, touch spirits, but also put you in a place of worship, and having those moments and having this atmosphere, being able to be passed around our community, but also being spread around our community is something that's very unique to Paducah and a jewel in this community.
It sounds like in many ways that the choir is really a preserver of tradition in a lot of ways. You know, I think that as a musician myself, you know, and growing up playing in churches and playing a variety of songs, all the way from traditional to contemporary to you name it, you know, I find that there is a richness and a history that is preserved in those traditional songs. You know, it strikes a memory. You know, you may think of, you know, your grandparents or your mother or some fond memory of that, or, you know, like you were saying, those are the songs that you lean upon when you're in dark times, and those are the times that you want to hear something more traditional and less contemporary. So what are your opinions on that? Do you feel that the traditional songs are losing their place, or do you feel like they should be played more?
I don't believe that they're losing their place. However, they really do need to be played more.
That's what I'm on to.
But I think a lot of people like the more upbeat music to kind of keep things upbeat in a service, let's say, for instance. And we still enjoy the more toned down music. And as Reverend Williams said, you know, the meanings of the song, and if you just sit and listen to the words, it takes us back to, I don't want to say what the older people used to think, because I'm there now myself, but the meaning of what the words say and how it just soothes the soul.
And one more thing I wanted to point out, being probably the youngest member of the choir currently, 60 years ago, there were people that were my age or younger in this choir. And so I think that's oftentimes as you said, we're a carrier of tradition. A lot of people may feel like they can't jump in there, but that's what we're actually glad that you've allowed us to come on this show for, because we're telling people that this is even something that you can get involved in and be able to participate and come and be a part of the union choir, because there's something for every age group. I actually don't, at every practice we have, every time that we sing together, I don't feel my age. Actually, I feel like I'm a part of the group. As any singer, as I know that you're very well versed in music as well, we ought to be able to blend with one another. And so I see myself as a baritone or a tenor and not as a young man in the choir.
Yeah, I think everyone has their role to play in there. And what I find that I like about the traditional songs is that it's not just the lyrics, it's not just they give you fond memories, but it's also I like to call it a complex simplicity in it. You know, there's something about those traditional songs that, you know, that strikes that memory with your grandparents, but it's also musically complex too. There's a lot of things in there, and for what some of these artists and where these songs came from, you know, you take an artist like Mahalia Jackson, easily one of the best vocalists of all time. Gospel, jazz, R&B, whatever genre you want to put her in, she's easily one of the best of all time. But people don't understand that it's artists like her that influence someone as big as Aretha Franklin, all the way down to, you know, current artists today. People still use her style. You know, they may not sing her songs anymore, but they're borrowing things from her. Do you find that the younger generation now is doing that? You know, you're trying to preserve these older songs and really get people to play them more, but do you find that the younger generation, do they have a full appreciation of this music?
I believe overall they do. Because interviews that I've heard them they refer back to the older singers, such as Mahalia Jackson or any of the other. It's just got to be a part of them, part of us.
And I'm going to take it a step further. Even in preparation of the anniversary that will be coming up soon, there's a 100-voice male chorus that's trying to go into place, and all of those individuals, even outside of the union choir, because it's holistically coming together to make this a reality for the anniversary. They're different generations that are learning this music, and that in itself is something that is just prolific and something that you can see from Pastor Hudson, who is directing from that age group, and then you have one of the twins, the Donaldsons, that in that age group. So it's being able to see holistically people like Pastor Vincent, all the way down to myself and those Donaldsons. It gives a chance to see that the music can touch every generation, specifically with men, but also both genders in that session. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I was just going to say that it seems as though the songs that Pastor Hudson is teaching us has a combination of everything.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Even within a song, not just a specific song, but throughout the song, that just everything is pulled together.
I think that that's the beautiful thing about music. You know, you can make it as complex or as simple as you want to. You can add and combine elements from different things. And you know, what really gets me to a high level of appreciation for the more traditional songs that your choir does is the fact that when you really observe the history from some of these songs, when you really look back and see where some of these songs originated from and what they came out of, you know, it's you can't help but have a deep, profound appreciation for it. You know, Martin Luther King, one of his favorite songs was Precious Lord, Take My Hand. The original writer for that, Thomas Dorsey, actually wrote that after he went through a very traumatic experience of losing, I believe he lost his wife, and he wrote that song out of that. And I'm like, these are pieces of history that have to keep going, or even songs of the civil rights movement that, you know, like We Shall Overcome. You know, those are songs that have a place and a point in history. But I'm gonna ask a real tough question now. Okay. Set a little context up for it. So, we're seeing in an age now where more contemporary music has really moved away from choral arrangements. You're not seeing a full choir as much. You're more or less seeing either a soloist with some background support, or you're seeing more worship teams, much more smaller, condensed groups. What has made it so that the Union Choir has still remained a choir?
I'll take this one because I came in recently. Is
Okay.
that okay?
That's great.
Partly, like I said, I had been classically trained at Kentucky State University as well. They're a scholarship baritone, and so I don't like singing with just any group. Partly because there's several thousand different attitudes that are in 10 people or 20 people in a choir. I haven't experienced that with the Union Choir, and one of the things that brought me to the table with that is the fact that there was someone by the name of Maddie Bryant, Miss Maddie Bryant, and she is by far one of the diamonds in that is here in Paducah. Just straight facts. She sings a song, "Were You There When They Crucified the Lord?" And so it's more or less comes out around Easter time, but every sunrise service that actually the Interdenominational Union Choir puts on here in our community, that we look to Miss Bryant to sing that song, and to be able to hear her with her tone and just the point of putting you in the song. It's a classical moment, and it's not a song that is a choir song, but it is a soloist song. And so it answers the question that you were bringing out of, you see that people are going more to soloists, you see that people are going more to these worship leaders and worship groups. But the Union Choir has come to a place that we can encompass all of those things, to where you have the ability to have a Malin Thomas lead a solo, or even have a Reverend Vincent to be able to lead a solo or a lead to a song where he's talking about, one of my favorites that the Union Choir does is the walk, where he says, I could not, what did he say?
Without him holding
with my hand. I can't even walk without him holding my hand. It almost caught me up. That's why I almost couldn't say it. Every time he sings this song, it just takes me to a place to where I can't even walk without God holding my hand. And that's a real statement. And hearing him sing it with the vigor that he sings it, and then to have the choir come in and be able to help him to get the message across the way that we do. It's just something that's prolific. It's something that shows that music transcends time.
I agree.
It's almost like writing. If you remember when you were in high school in English class, the teacher said for you to write where it was painting a picture. No one had to ask any questions. The same way with singing, as he said, Miss Maddie, when she does that song, you follow along with her, and that picture is painted of everything that went on during that crucifixion. And to me, that's what gospel and singing is all about. You can see it and feel it at the same time.
I think that is such a crucial thing. These are songs that are so important and even near and dear to the NAACP, as the NAACP has very deep roots and connections with the Christian faith. So when you guys are interdenominational, so you take anybody, anybody. So understanding that every denomination is different. Every denomination has their own style, so to speak. They have their own version of music, or the way that they interpret music for their services. How do you mesh all of that together? Because if so and so is Baptist and such is Methodist and then so and so is Presbyterian, how do you mix all that together?
Actually, we don't even think of it.
That's right.
And we have great musicians who always ask, what song would you like to sing? Or have you had any requests? And for instance, if someone, it's their first time coming to us, we've never been to the church, we always ask them, what would you like for us to do? We're coming to your church, what does your church like, and what would you like to sing? So we have a voice in a great voice in what we sing.
And beyond that, every time we go to a church, there's always one or two selections that are asked by the choir, because we do a full concert from the Interdenominational Union Choir. But at the actual church that we're visiting, if that church has a choir or a specific soloist or people who are a part of the choir, they have a moment as well. And so that aspect is already taken care of just in that moment of them being able to do what they're used to doing or wanting to hear, but also getting the full concert from the Interdenominational Union Choir.
Creating the unity is, I think, such a key function. It's very hard to get people, especially when you talk about their faith, and faith in music can be another thing. It's very difficult sometimes to get people all together in the same room and get them all to agree and be there for a common purpose.
And for 60 years, this
for
has
60
been going
years to
on.
do that.
60 years,
For 60
exactly.
years. I know one thing that I appreciate as being a member of the NAACP. I appreciate the fact that many members of the Union Choir are also members of the NAACP and are very active too. You know, they're singing these songs that are very uplifting and very, you know, memorable and traditional, and singing the gospel. But they're also out working in the community. They're also out doing things. They're very active. You yourself are very active. I know, Pastor Williams, you're very active and have your hands in a lot of different things. And so I really appreciate that. And it really goes to show just how something as simple as a song can really impact and influence other people, because music really is that universal language between all of us. So I appreciate that fact from both of you gentlemen. So when you're having, you mentioned that you have your rehearsals and that, you know, the musicians are great about incorporating everybody else's songs, and that you really don't seem to have any dissension between you.
No.
Now, 60 years. Surely nobody has gotten along for 60 years. I'm sure there's been some squabbles and some fights, or, you know, just family scuffles, we'll call them. But have there been any significant challenges, not wanting to talk about drama in between members or anything, not at that at all, but have there been any significant challenges with the Union Choir over the years?
I probably will say this one. Losing members is hard. And we don't lose members because people walk away. We lose members because people pass on. I'm saying this because I got your back.
Okay.
Okay, so that was where it was at. I don't. If somebody often brings up these things, then it might jog something. I wanted to have that moment. So losing a member from our church, before I even got here, there was a wonderful woman that was by the name of Betty Whitfield. She represented St. James for years in the Union Choir. I never even got to meet this woman. But coming in and representing St. James in the Union Choir after she left, I have a legacy that I have to follow behind now. And her not being present, I wish I could have met this woman, because I heard so many great things about Miss Betty Whitfield that I would have never known otherwise than the Interdenominational Union Choir. And that's even saying that I'm serving at the place where she once was a member. So I would have heard one story of Miss Betty Whitfield as being a phenomenal woman for St. James CME Church. But then hearing the great things that she did and witness she had with the Interdenominational Union Choir, it gives a whole nother element. And so getting away from our church, there's several different churches that are represented, and so many people who have had the opportunity to have went through these doors of the Interdenominational Union Choir. And so I know that losing a member that way is very hard.
And may I interject that each month that we sing at a church, that money that we take up in an offering is left at the church. The month of July, we keep all funds that are taken up, because we donate money to the Oscar Cross Boys and Girls Club and to the WPSD Telethon of Stars, and any other need throughout the year that we feel needs our assistance, we
And
do
our
that
Ju-
as well.
Our July one is our anniversary.
Anniversary,
Yeah, so
yes,
that's why it's.
So you guys are also using, not only are you using music to spread the gospel, but you're also using it to impact the community. You know,
Yes,
worthy
yes.
causes such as, you know, Oscar Cross and other organizations that you may be giving money to. I think that that's a very worthy thing. And you guys have found a way to bridge something that you both enjoy doing, but also making it a way to give back to the community. So I think that is so important, especially for the younger generation coming up, you know, gaining an appreciation for this music, gaining an appreciation for some of the things that have, you know, since long past. You know, it's funny when you're younger, you don't really understand, you know, why these songs are important or why this music is important. Why is it something that should be preserved? You know, I go back to my example of Mahalia Jackson earlier. You know, if it wasn't for her, there would be no Aretha Franklin. If there was no Aretha Franklin, you don't have Beyonce. You don't have anybody that you listen to today. So, you know, getting that connection and getting people to understand that, but also learning the fact that you guys, you know, you're not getting anything out of this for yourselves. You're giving back to everyone else, and I think that that's so important.
I have to interject there. I am getting something out of this for myself. When every fourth Sunday, when we sing together, it's it gives an empty vessel a refreshing. I'm poured back into. I've poured out all month. And I believe that a lot of our members pour out a lot, as you mentioned already. And to be able to come together and not have anything more than just to be present in the house and to sing and to bring that, it is so refreshing, and that you're able to get that. It's almost like battery cables, that jump for the another month. And we only practice once a month. So
Yes,
I mean,
the Tuesday before the fourth Sunday, we practice at the church where we'll render our service.
Lovely. So, look, while we have such a short amount of time left, we only got a few minutes left. So, we've said traditional songs so many times. What are some song examples? Do you have any names of songs that you guys are like? What are your standards?
Okay. We start our service off with Blessed Quietness, and we've come this far by faith. We've also done Precious Lord, some other songs.
I may not have done all I wanted to do, but
It's been
Lord,
a good
it's
day.
been a mighty
It's
good
been
day.
a good day.
You said we come this far by faith.
And I want to be at the meeting.
Oh,
One of the
yes.
old
Like
songs.
almost spirituals. And
Yes.
things. So these are incredible songs and incredible parts of our history as well. You know, especially African American history, because again, these songs aren't just rooted in the gospel; they are, and that is the primary function. However, they are also songs that are steeped rich in history and culture and what they come out of. And so, you know, I want to applaud you gentlemen for you know being a part of such a great organization and for using your platform in that to give back to the community, as we encourage all of our viewers and listeners to do the same and to find ways to give back in their community, even if it is through the choir. So to everybody that's out here watching Power to the People, we appreciate you. We want to make sure that you catch us on Facebook at Paducah NAACP. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.